When you watch Japanese movies, you'll notice that school uniforms for girls almost always feature short skirts. Why do Japanese schoolgirls always wear short skirts as their uniforms, regardless of whether it's freezing winter or sweltering summer? Picture this. It's winter in Tokyo, snow is falling heavily, the icy wind cuts through your skin. Yet, you still see schoolgirls happily walking around in pleated miniskirts, white blouses, knee-high socks, and sometimes even cute boots. Or in summer, when the temperature climbs above 30 degrees and sweat is pouring down, they still head to school in those same short skirts as if nothing's unusual. First of all, whether you've noticed it or not, the image of Japanese schoolgirls in short skirts has become an icon, appearing everywhere from anime to movies, social media, and pop culture in general. The sight of girls in pleated skirts, white shirts, and knee-high socks on their way to school in all kinds of weather has become so recognizable that it's now a cultural symbol of Japan, on par with cherry blossoms or Mount Fuji. But why short skirts? Why not long skirts, pants, or something warmer for the winter? To understand this, we need to go back in time to when Japan was still struggling economically. There was a period when Japan wasn't as prosperous as it is today. Farmland was scarce, agriculture struggled to feed the population, and fabric was expensive. To save material, people came up with ways to make clothing using less cloth. That's why school uniforms, especially girls' skirts, were made short, above the knee, cheap, practical, and easy to move around in. But that was only a small part of the story. In 1921, something happened that forever changed Japanese school uniforms. A female principal in Fukuoka, after studying abroad in England, was impressed by the neat, stylish uniforms worn by British schoolgirls: white blouses, pleated skirts, and knee-high socks. She brought the idea back to Japan and introduced it to her girls' school in Fukuoka. From there, the style spread across the country and eventually became the standard, a uniform style born more than a century ago that still defines Japan today. But the question remains, is it still suitable for modern times? This is something many people wonder, especially since winters in Japan can be brutally cold, with temperatures dropping below zero and snow piling up meters high. So why do Japanese schoolgirls still stick with short skirts? The first reason is that, in Japan, uniforms are not just clothes, they're a way to maintain equality within schools. Educators believe that when all students wear the same outfit, they won't be distracted by comparisons like, "Oh, she's wearing an expensive brand," or "I don't have nice clothes to show off." This rule is meant to help students focus on their studies, without feeling pressured to keep up with fashion. Imagine if everyone were free to dress as they pleased. Some students would wear luxurious clothes, others plain or cheap outfits, and that could easily lead to class distinctions or rivalry. That's why the short skirt uniform, whether in freezing winter or scorching summer, serves as a way for everyone to share the same hardships together. Everyone dresses the same, everyone endures the cold or the heat equally, and no one is allowed to break the rules. But there is also a paradox. How can you focus on studying while shivering in a short skirt under falling snow? Yet, ironically, this is exactly one of the main reasons Japanese schools insist on keeping this uniform style. Despite these challenges, Japan has not changed. In Japan, collective culture is extremely important. People generally avoid doing things that stand out too much, for fear of being seen as deviating from the community standard. For schoolgirls, even though some schools now allow wearing trousers in winter, many still stick with skirts, afraid of being teased by classmates, worried about being labeled weird, or simply not wanting to feel out of place in a crowd. In 2018, some schools began experimenting with unisex uniforms, meaning students could choose either skirts or pants. In theory, it sounded progressive, but in reality, very few girls dared to pick pants. Comments frequently seen on social media went along the lines of, "I wanted to wear pants to stay warm, but since the whole class wore skirts, I felt out of place." This shows just how powerful social pressure in Japan can be. After more than 100 years, the short skirt uniform has become an inseparable part of school life. Across generations, girls have grown accustomed to wearing them, viewing it as a distinctive feature of their school identity. In fact, many girls even see short skirts as a way to express personality, youthfulness, and confidence. But not everyone agrees that short uniforms are a good thing, especially parents in Japan, who in recent years have strongly opposed them. Imagine being a mother or father in a region where winter temperatures plunge below zero, snow blankets the streets, and your daughter has to walk to school in a short skirt, teeth chattering in the icy wind. Of course, you'd worry about her catching a cold or pneumonia. That's why many parents have encouraged their daughters to wear leggings or thick tights under their skirts for warmth. But this is where complications arise. Many schools oppose the practice, arguing that wearing leggings violates traditional uniform rules. Their reasoning is that uniforms must remain consistent and unchanged so students stay focused on studying and avoid comparing appearances. To address this issue, starting from the 2010s, some schools in Japan began making changes. They allowed girls to wear trousers on cold days or adjusted the skirt length to be more comfortable. A few schools even introduced unique alternatives. For example, some schools in Tokyo and Osaka introduced uniforms that both boys and girls could wear, as mentioned earlier. But change hasn't come easily. Many girls continued to choose short skirts, either out of habit, fear of being teased by classmates, or simply because they genuinely liked the style. Now, let's take a quick tour around the world to see how school uniforms look elsewhere, and whether any other country has been as stubborn as Japan in sticking with short skirts for over a century. Unsurprisingly, the closest case is South Korea. In Korea, girls' uniforms also often include pleated skirts, white blouses, sweaters, or blazers. At first glance, they look similar to Japan's, but Korean schools are much more flexible. In winter, many schools allow girls to wear long trousers or longer skirts for warmth. Some even provide separate winter uniforms with thick coats and warm tights. Interestingly, Korean school uniforms are very fashionable and are frequently promoted by K-pop idols in their music videos. There are even shops selling limited edition versions for fans. Compared to Japan, Korea still maintains tradition but is much more adaptive when it comes to weather. In Europe, particularly in the UK, where, as mentioned earlier, Japan originally drew inspiration for its uniforms, many schools still require girls to wear skirts. However, these are usually knee-length or longer, especially in winter. British students are also allowed to wear thick coats, warm tights, or even trousers if permitted by the school. Compared to Japan, the British are more practical and don't force students to endure the cold just for the sake of tradition. And what about Vietnam? School uniforms in Vietnam vary widely depending on the school. Female students often wear áo dai, a traditional long dress, knee-length skirts, or blouses paired with trousers. In the chilly northern winters, many schools allow students to wear long pants, coats, or sweaters underneath their uniforms. In the United States, school uniforms are not as common as in Asia. Only some private schools require them, and even then, students usually have the option of skirts or trousers. American students generally have the freedom to dress according to the weather, so the idea of forcing kids to wear short skirts in the dead of winter would seem very strange to most Americans. In the US, a culture of individuality means comfort is often prioritized over tradition. In Thailand, however, female students' uniforms also typically include pleated skirts, but they are usually knee-length, paired with white blouses and sometimes with ribbons or bows. Since Thailand is warm year-round, skirt length is not a major concern. When the weather is cooler, students are allowed to wear jackets and long pants. Compared to Japan, Thailand is also more flexible and doesn't force students to maintain a particular image in uncomfortable conditions. So, as you can see, short skirt uniforms are not just a matter of school rules. In Japan, they've spilled over into popular culture, and here, spilled over should be taken in quotation marks. The image of schoolgirls in short skirts appears everywhere, in anime, in films, and in Japanese pop music videos. The schoolgirl in a pleated miniskirt has become a cultural symbol. But what do you think about it? If you were a schoolgirl in Japan, would you choose to wear a short skirt to keep the traditional image alive, or switch to trousers to stay warm? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for following along with this story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share it with others. For now, it's time to say goodbye.